Hello guys, and welcome to my summer 2025 compilation. Let's jump right in.
World War II was the golden age of fighter aircraft. From the skies over Europe to the Pacific, legendary planes and pilots shaped the outcome of the war. Today, we're counting down the 10 best fighters of World War II. Number 10, the Hawker Hurricane. Often overshadowed by the Spitfire, the Hurricane actually shot down more enemy aircraft during the Battle of Britain. Rugged, reliable, and easy to repair, it was the backbone of the RAF in the early years of the war. At number 9, the German Focke-Wulf FW-190. Nicknamed the Butcher Bird, this fighter was fast, heavily armed, and a nightmare for Allied pilots. Its versatility made it effective as both a fighter and a ground attack aircraft. Number 8 is the Soviet Yakovlev Yak-3. This lightweight, agile fighter dominated the Eastern Front, earning the respect of both Soviet and German pilots. Its speed and maneuverability made it a favorite among aces. Coming in at number 7, the Mitsubishi A6M0. At the start of the war, the Zero was unmatched in agility and range, allowing Japan to dominate the skies over the Pacific. However, its lack of armor became a weakness as the war progressed. Number 6 is the distinctive Lockheed P-38 Lightning. With its twin-boom design and powerful armament, the P-38 excelled as a long-range escort and was responsible for shooting down the plane carrying Japanese Admiral Yamamoto. At number 5, the Republic P-47 Thunderbolt. Nicknamed the Jug, this American fighter was tough, heavily armed, and excelled at ground attack missions. Its durability saved countless pilots' lives. Number 4 is the Messerschmitt Bf-109. As the backbone of the Luftwaffe, the Bf-109 was the most produced fighter of the war. Fast and deadly, it was flown by many of the top German aces. Taking third place is the North American P-51 Mustang. With its long range and excellent performance, the Mustang escorted bombers deep into enemy territory and helped secure air superiority for the Allies. Runner-up is the legendary Supermarine Spitfire. Its iconic elliptical wings and superb handling made it a favorite among pilots. The Spitfire was crucial in the Battle of Britain and continued to improve throughout the war. And at number 1, the Chance Vought F-4U Corsair. With its distinctive gull wings, the Corsair dominated the Pacific theater. It was fast, heavily armed, and could take a beating, earning the nickname Whistling Death from its enemy. These are our picks for the 10 best fighters of World War II. Did your favorite make the list? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more history content. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Welcome to our comprehensive countdown of the top 10 World War II tanks. Tanks were the steel giants that shaped the battlefields of the Second World War, influencing the outcome of countless engagements and leaving a lasting legacy on military technology. In this video, we'll dive deep into the history, design, and battlefield performance of the 10 most significant tanks of the era. Whether you're a military history buff or just curious about these iconic machines, you're in the right place. World War II marked a revolution in armored warfare. The tank, first introduced during World War I, evolved rapidly in the interwar years and became a central element of military strategy by the late 1930s. As nations raced to develop faster, stronger, and more heavily armed vehicles, engineers and soldiers alike learned hard lessons on the battlefield. The tanks of World War II were not just weapons. They were symbols of national power, technological prowess, and the will to win. From the windswept deserts of North Africa to the frozen forests of the Eastern Front, tanks played pivotal roles in every major theater. Their designs reflected the unique challenges faced by each nation. Some prioritized speed and mobility, others firepower and protection. The tanks on this list were chosen for their influence, innovation, and the impact they had on the course of the war. Number 10, M3 Lee. Let's begin with the M3 Lee, known as the Grant in British service. Developed quickly after the outbreak of war, the M3 was the United States' answer to the urgent need for a medium tank. Its most distinctive feature was the 75mm main gun mounted in a sponson on the right side of the hull, complemented by a 37mm gun in a rotating turret. This unusual arrangement was a compromise, as American industry couldn't yet produce a turret large enough for the 75mm gun. Despite its awkward silhouette and high profile, the M3 proved invaluable in the North African campaign. When British forces first received the Grant variant, it was one of the few Allied tanks capable of taking on the German Panzer III and IV at range. Its reliability, ease of maintenance, and quick production helped stabilize the situation in North Africa until more advanced tanks arrived. However, the M3's design was soon outclassed. Its tall structure made it an easy target, and the hull-mounted gun limited its effectiveness in close combat. Nevertheless, the M3 Lee/Grant deserves its place on this list for bridging the gap between early war designs and the arrival of the legendary M4 Sherman. Number 9. Panzer III. Next up is the Panzer III, the workhorse of the German armored divisions during the early years of the war. Designed in the mid-1930s, the Panzer III was intended as Germany's primary battle tank, capable of engaging enemy armor with its 37mm and later 50mm main gun. The Panzer III was instrumental in the Blitzkrieg campaigns that swept through Poland, France, and the Low Countries. Its three-man turret allowed for efficient command and control, giving German tank crews a tactical edge. The tank's suspension and mobility made it well suited for rapid advances and flanking maneuvers. As the war progressed, the Panzer III struggled to keep up with better armored and armed opponents like the Soviet T-34. Upgrades to its gun and armor extended its service life, but by 1943 it was largely relegated to support roles. Still, the Panzer III's early successes and its influence on subsequent German tank designs secure its spot in our top 10. Number 8. T-60. At number 8, we have the Soviet T-60 light tank. While not as famous as some of its contemporaries, the T-60 played a crucial role during the darkest days of the war for the Soviet Union. Designed as a reconnaissance and infantry support vehicle, the T-60 was lightly armored and armed with a 20mm cannon. Its greatest strength was its simplicity. The T-60 could be produced quickly and in large numbers, using automotive components and even factories originally intended for civilian vehicles. During the German invasion of 1941, these tanks helped plug gaps in the Red Army's defenses and provided much-needed support to infantry units. Though vulnerable to enemy anti-tank weapons and outmatched by heavier German tanks, the T-60's sheer numbers and ability to operate in difficult terrain made it a valuable asset. It's a testament to the Soviet philosophy of quantity having a quality all its own. Number 7. M4 Sherman. No list of World War II tanks would be complete without the M4 Sherman. Developed as the successor to the M3 Lee, the Sherman became the backbone of Allied armored forces. Over 49,000 Shermans were built, serving in every theater of the war. The Sherman was designed for reliability, ease of production, and versatility. Its 75mm main gun was effective against most early war German tanks, and its mechanical simplicity meant it could be repaired in the field with minimal resources. The Sherman's design allowed for numerous variants, including those equipped with flamethrowers, rocket launchers, and even amphibious capabilities. One of the Sherman's greatest strengths was its adaptability. As the war progressed and it faced tougher opponents like the Panther and Tiger, the Sherman was upgraded with a more powerful 76mm gun and improved armor. The British even developed the Firefly variant, mounting a potent 17-pounder anti-tank gun that could take on the heaviest German armor. While the Sherman was sometimes criticized for its thin armor and tendency to catch fire when hit, its numbers, mobility, and the ability to be fielded in mass gave the Allies a decisive edge. The Sherman was not just a tank. It was a symbol of American industrial might and the spirit of cooperation among Allied nations. Number 6. Churchill. The British Churchill tank stands out for its heavy armor and ability to traverse the roughest terrain. Named after Prime Minister Winston Churchill, this infantry tank was designed for crossing trenches and supporting infantry assaults. The Churchill's thick armor made it one of the most well-protected tanks of the war, capable of withstanding hits that would disable other vehicles. Its relatively slow speed was offset by its ability to climb steep slopes and cross obstacles that would stop lighter tanks in their tracks. Churchills saw action in some of the most challenging environments, including the Dieppe Raid and the Battle of Normandy. The tank's design allowed for a wide range of specialized variants, such as the Crocodile flamethrower tank and the Aviary engineering vehicle equipped with a petard mortar for demolishing fortifications. Despite its early mechanical issues, the Churchill proved its worth time and again, particularly in close support roles where its armor and firepower could be brought to bear. Number 5. Panzer IV. The Panzer IV occupies a special place in the history of armored warfare. Initially conceived as an infantry support tank, it quickly became the mainstay of the German panzer divisions. Its early models were armed with a short-barreled 75mm gun, but as the war progressed, the Panzer IV was upgraded with a long-barreled, high-velocity gun capable of engaging enemy armor at range. The Panzer IV's design was robust and adaptable, allowing for continuous improvements in armor, firepower, and mobility. It fought on every front, from the deserts of North Africa to the frozen steppes of Russia. The tank's versatility led to the development of numerous variants, including command tanks, anti-aircraft platforms, and tank destroyers. By the end of the war, over 8,500 Panzer IVs had been produced, more than any other German tank. Its ability to remain effective throughout the conflict, despite the introduction of more advanced tanks, is a testament to its solid design and the ingenuity of German engineers. Number 4. T-34. Arguably the most influential tank of World War II, the Soviet T-34 combined firepower, armor, and mobility in a revolutionary package. When it first appeared in 1940, the T-34's sloped armor provided superior protection against enemy shells, while its 76.2mm gun could destroy most German tanks at typical combat ranges. The T-34's wide tracks allowed it to traverse mud, snow, and rough terrain that would bog down other vehicles. Its diesel engine was less prone to catching fire than the gasoline engines used by many other tanks. The T-34's design philosophy emphasized simplicity and ease of production, enabling the Soviets to build over 57,000 units during the war. The arrival of the T-34 on the Eastern Front shocked German commanders, who found their own tanks outclassed. The T-34 played a decisive role in battles such as Kursk and Stalingrad, helping to turn the tide against the Axis. Later models were upgraded with an 85mm gun, further increasing their lethality. The T-34's legacy extends far beyond World War II, influencing tank design for decades to come. Number 3. Tiger I. The Tiger I tank is perhaps the most iconic German tank of the war. Introduced in 1942, the Tiger was designed to dominate the battlefield with its thick armor and powerful 88mm gun. Its frontal armor was nearly impervious to most Allied anti-tank weapons, and its gun could destroy enemy tanks at ranges where they couldn't return fire. The Tiger quickly gained a fearsome reputation. In battles such as Kursk and Normandy, a single Tiger could hold off entire formations of enemy tanks. German tank aces like Michael Wittmann became legends behind the controls of the Tiger. However, the Tiger was not without its flaws. Its complex engineering made it difficult to produce and maintain, and its heavy weight limited its mobility and made it prone to mechanical breakdowns. Only about 1,350 Tigers were built, making them a rare but formidable presence on the battlefield. Despite these limitations, the Tiger's psychological impact and battlefield performance earn it a place among the greatest tanks of World War II. Number 2. IS-2. The Soviet IS-2, or Iosif Stalin tank, was developed in response to the appearance of the German Tiger and Panther tanks. Armed with a massive 122mm gun, the IS-2 could destroy enemy armor and fortifications with ease. The IS-2's thick, sloped armor provided excellent protection, while its gun could penetrate the frontal armor of even the heaviest German tanks. The IS-2 was designed for breakthrough operations, leading assaults against fortified positions and spearheading the Soviet advance into Eastern Europe. In battles such as the Vistula-Oder offensive and the Battle of Berlin, the IS-2 played a critical role. Its ability to engage enemy tanks at long range and withstand counterattacks made it a formidable opponent. The IS-2's influence extended beyond World War II, serving in various conflicts throughout the 20th century and shaping the design of future Soviet heavy tanks. Before we wrap up, let's quickly mention a few tanks that didn't make the top 10 but still played important roles. Matilda II, known for its heavy armor during the early war years. KV-1, a heavily armored Soviet tank that shocked the Germans in 1941. Comet, an advanced British cruiser tank introduced late in the war. M26 Pershing, America's late-war heavy tank, which saw limited action but pointed the way to post-war designs. Number 1. Panther. Topping our list is the German Panther, officially known as the Panzerkampfwagen V Panther. Introduced in 1943, the Panther was designed to counter the Soviet T-34. It combined the best features of its adversaries: sloped armor for increased protection, a powerful 75mm high-velocity gun, and excellent mobility. The Panther's gun could penetrate the armor of most Allied tanks at long range, while its armor provided effective defense against enemy fire. Its wide tracks allowed it to maneuver across difficult terrain, and its sophisticated suspension system provided a smooth ride for the crew. The Panther saw action on both the Eastern and Western fronts, making its combat debut at the Battle of Kursk. While early models suffered from mechanical issues, later versions proved highly effective. The Panther's balance of firepower, protection, and mobility influenced tank design for decades, setting the standard for post-war armored vehicles. Although only about 6,000 Panthers were built, their impact was profound. The Panther is widely regarded as the best all-around tank of World War II, combining innovation, battlefield performance, and enduring legacy. Tanks were more than just machines. They were the embodiment of national determination, engineering skill, and the courage of the crews who fought in them. From the mass-produced Sherman to the fearsome Tiger, each tank on this list made its mark on the history of World War II. Their stories remind us of the incredible challenges and innovations of the era and the enduring fascination with armored warfare. Thanks for joining us on this journey through history. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into military history. Let us know in the comments which tank you think deserves the top spot, or if there's another armored legend you'd add to the list. See you in the next video. The Siege of Leningrad stands as one of the longest, most devastating sieges in history, a 900-day ordeal that tested the limits of human endurance, resilience, and hope. In this video, we'll dive straight into the heart of the siege, the suffering, the strategies, and the spirit that defined Leningrad's survival. September 8, 1941. The German army encircles Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg, cutting off all supply routes in a relentless bid to crush the city. For the next 872 days, nearly 3 million civilians and soldiers would endure bombardment, starvation, and unimaginable hardship. This is the story of the Siege of Leningrad. Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union, brought the war to Leningrad's doorstep. By early September, German and Finnish armies had surrounded the city, severing railways and roads. Hitler's orders were clear: no surrender, no mercy. Leningrad was to be wiped from the map. Inside the city, daily life became a struggle for survival. Food supplies dwindled rapidly. By winter, rations for workers dropped to just 250 grams of bread a day, less than a single slice. For children and the elderly, even less. The bread itself was mixed with sawdust and cellulose. Starvation claimed hundreds of thousands. People boiled wallpaper for the glue, ate pets, and, in the darkest moments, some even turned to cannibalism. Quote of a Leningrad survivor: "We were dying like flies. Every day, I saw neighbors disappear." Leningrad endured constant shelling and aerial bombardment. Schools, hospitals, and homes were destroyed. Yet, the city refused to surrender. Citizens dug trenches, built barricades, and kept factories running, producing weapons and supplies for the front. With all land routes cut, Lake Ladoga became Leningrad's lifeline. In winter, trucks and sledges braved the Road of Life, a perilous ice route across the lake, to deliver food and evacuate civilians. Many vehicles fell through the ice or were destroyed by German bombs, but the road kept hope alive. Even in the darkest days, Leningrad's spirit endured. Composer Dmitri Shostakovich wrote his Seventh Symphony during the siege. Its premiere, performed by a starving orchestra and broadcast throughout the city, became a symbol of resistance. By the time the siege was lifted in January 1944, over 1 million civilians had died, mostly from starvation. Yet, Leningrad never fell. The city's endurance became a legend, a testament to the resilience of its people. Today, the siege of Leningrad is remembered as both a tragedy and a triumph of the human spirit. Memorials across St. Petersburg honor those who suffered and those who fought. Their story is a reminder. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, hope and courage can endure. The siege of Leningrad was a battle not just for a city, but for humanity itself. Against hunger, cold, and war, Leningrad stood unbroken. To wrap up, I want to sincerely thank you all for watching this video. The story of the siege of Leningrad powerfully demonstrates the resilience and strength people can show in the face of unimaginable hardship. If you found this topic interesting, please leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts or questions in the comments below. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. France, still haunted by the devastation of World War I, relied heavily on the Maginot Line, a series of formidable fortifications along its border with Germany. The French military, supported by British expeditionary forces, believed that this line, combined with natural barriers like the Ardennes Forest, would prevent a rapid German advance. However, German military planners, led by General Erich von Manstein, developed a bold strategy to circumvent these defenses. The German strategy for invading France was rooted in the concept of blitzkrieg, or lightning war. This approach emphasized speed, surprise, and the coordinated use of tanks, infantry, and air power to break through enemy lines and encircle opposing forces. The Germans had learned from their experiences in Poland and refined their tactics for the Western campaign. The initial German plan, known as Fall Gelb, Case Yellow, called for a direct assault through Belgium and the Netherlands, similar to the Schlieffen Plan of World War I. However, Manstein proposed a daring alternative. The main thrust would come through the Ardennes, a region considered impassable by the Allies due to its dense forests and rugged terrain. German armored divisions would punch through the Ardennes, cross the Meuse River, and drive rapidly to the English Channel, cutting off Allied forces advancing into Belgium. On May 10, 1940, Germany launched its offensive in the west. The attack began with simultaneous invasions of Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg. These moves were designed to draw Allied forces northward, away from the actual Schwerpunkt, or focal point, of the German attack. German paratroopers and airborne units seized key bridges and airfields, while panzer divisions raced through the Low Countries. The speed and ferocity of the German advance overwhelmed Dutch and Belgian defenses, forcing their rapid surrender. Meanwhile, the Allies moved their best units into Belgium, as expected by the Germans. While the Allies focused on the north, the main German force, spearheaded by Heinz Guderian's panzer group, advanced through the Ardennes. Despite the difficult terrain, German engineers and armored units moved swiftly, encountering minimal resistance. On May 12th, German tanks reached the Meuse River near Sedan. The French defenders at Sedan were unprepared for the scale and intensity of the German assault. After a brief but devastating aerial bombardment by the Luftwaffe, German troops crossed the river using inflatable boats and quickly established bridgeheads. Within days, German armor had broken through the French lines and was advancing rapidly westward. The German breakthrough at Sedan caught the Allies off guard. French and British commanders struggled to comprehend the speed of the German advance and were slow to react. As German panzer divisions raced toward the English Channel, they threatened to encircle the bulk of Allied forces, which had moved into Belgium. Efforts to counterattack were hampered by poor coordination, communication breakdowns, and the sheer momentum of the German offensive. The French attempted several counterattacks, most notably at Arras, but these were repulsed by German tanks and air support. By May 20th, German forces had reached the channel near Abbeville, effectively trapping the British Expeditionary Force, BF, French First Army, and Belgian Army in a pocket along the northern coast. The rapid advance stunned the world and left the Allies in a desperate situation. With Allied forces surrounded, the British government launched Operation Dynamo, a massive evacuation effort to rescue the BEF and as many Allied troops as possible from the beaches of Dunkirk. From May 26th to June 4th, a flotilla of naval vessels, merchant ships, and civilian boats braved German air attacks to evacuate over 338,000 soldiers. The successful evacuation at Dunkirk was a remarkable achievement, preserving the core of the British Army and allowing Britain to continue the fight. However, much of the heavy equipment, vehicles, and supplies had to be abandoned, and the French army was left severely weakened. After Dunkirk, German forces resumed their offensive, known as Fall Rot, Case Red, targeting the remaining French defenses. With the French army exhausted and demoralized, German troops encountered little effective resistance. Paris was declared an open city and occupied by German forces on June 14, 1940. On June 17, Marshal Philippe Pétain, recently appointed as prime minister, announced that France would seek an armistice. The formal surrender was signed on June 22, 1940, in the same railway carriage at Compiègne where Germany had signed the armistice ending World War I. France was divided into a German-occupied zone in the north and west and a nominally independent Vichy government in the south. The rapid collapse of France shocked the world and prompted intense analysis. Several key factors contributed to the French defeat. Strategic misjudgments. French commanders relied too heavily on static defenses like the Maginot Line and underestimated the possibility of a German attack through the Ardennes. Poor communication and coordination. The Allied command structure was fragmented, leading to slow and ineffective responses to German maneuvers. Superior German tactics. The Germans' use of blitzkrieg tactics, combined arms, and rapid movement outpaced the slower, less flexible Allied forces. Morale and political instability. France was politically divided and still recovering from the trauma of World War I, which affected morale and the willingness to fight. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the Battle of France, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment about which World War II topic you'd like to see covered next. We all know the saying, everything was better back then. Many things have gotten better in the last 60 years. Just look at the dropping child mortality rates, the rising wealth, and the emergence of technologies that improve the quality of life. But there's something I forgot to mention. These improvements refer to our species and not to a specific country. In this video, I want to show you why life in the United States has actually gotten worse in the last 60 years. Let's look at crime. The violent crime rate in 1964 was 160 cases for every 100,000 citizens. In 2024, it doubled at 380. When looking at physical health, we can see that the obesity rate for adults has increased from 13% to 40%. An alarming trend that shows that a large part of the US population is not in good shape. Income inequality is also on the rise. In 1964, the wealthiest 1% held about 25% of the nation's wealth. In 2024, this figure has increased to 40%. This shows that the resources are being owned by fewer and fewer Americans, while more do not own significant assets. These trends are shocking, but it gets even worse. While Americans in 1964 spent 5% of their income on healthcare, today's people have to use 15% of their income for healthcare. This shows that the actual burden that is put on America's sick has become heavier. 60 years ago, school shootings virtually did not exist. Therefore, exactly 0 people became victims of school shootings in 1964. In 2024, 69 people died in a school shooting. This is a shocking trend, scaring an entire generation away from going to school. These cases simply did not happen back then, and it would be interesting to know why. School shootings are often linked to an increase in drug use. While we cannot fully determine the impact of drug use, it has also been on the rise. In 1964, about 2,000 people died from drug overdoses. This number has jumped to over 100,000 in 2024, shocking. Alcoholics have also become more common. In 1964, about 7% of the US population was suffering from alcohol abuse disorder. This number has almost doubled to 14% in 2024. What is interesting? is that the resources that are being used for prevalence have hugely increased in the same time frame. We have already talked about rising issues, but how does the US government want to solve them? Here, another negative trend shines through. In 1964, the difference between the political parties was rated at 0.4 in the DW Nominate scoring. This number has jumped to 1.0 in 2024. This shows that the ideological gap has widened by more than 100%. This makes it harder to make compromises. This, in turn, makes it harder to solve the country's problems. A highly polarized country will also lead to a less trustful society, as more and more people are observed as ideological enemies. This enemy can also be the US government. In 1964, 70% of Americans said they trusted the government. This number has fallen to 20%, a shadow of its former self. It is already sad that only 1 in every 5 Americans trusts the institutions that are there to protect them. What is even more tragic is that more and more Americans feel that the opposing political party is a threat to their country. In 1964, 15% of the US population held this belief. Today, 60% see the opposing party as a threat. The United States is becoming the divided states. These trends are shocking, and we should all hope that the US will be able to reverse them soon. Nonetheless, although material wealth might have increased, many social factors have become far worse. This doesn't mean that life in every part of the US has gotten worse, but the overall trend seems clear. Thank you so much for watching. I had a hard time making this video, as I now see the United States in a different light. If you liked this video, please leave a like. This shows me which type of content my viewers enjoy most. And make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. What if the greatest adventures in human history weren't just about discovery, but about destruction? We celebrate explorers like Magellan and Columbus as heroes who expanded the boundaries of the known world. Their epic journeys are often portrayed as triumphant tales of courage and curiosity. But beneath this heroic narrative lies a far more unsettling truth. These voyages unleashed an ecological domino effect that reshaped entire ecosystems and led to the extinction of countless species. Today, we're going to challenge the way we think about exploration and its consequences, revealing a perspective that history books rarely show us. The romanticized explorer narrative. For centuries, explorers have been cast as fearless pioneers, bravely venturing into unknown lands. We imagine them stepping onto pristine shores, discovering empty islands and vast continents that awaited human presence. This image has been deeply ingrained in our cultural consciousness, celebrated in literature, art, and education. But the reality is far more complex. Many of the lands discovered by explorers were far from empty. They were vibrant ecosystems, home to intricate webs of life that had evolved over millennia. Indigenous peoples had cultivated and managed these environments, often maintaining a delicate balance with nature. The arrival of explorers disrupted these systems in profound ways. Historical narratives often omit or downplay the environmental damage caused by exploration. Instead, they focus on human achievements, mapping new territories, establishing trade routes, and expanding empires. But what if these heroes of discovery were also unwitting agents of ecological destruction? What if their journeys set in motion a chain of events that led to some of the planet's greatest biological losses? This romanticized view blinds us to the true cost of exploration. It's time to look beyond the stories of conquest and adventure and confront the ecological realities that followed. Uninvited guests, the biotic exchange. One of the most significant and lasting impacts of exploration was the introduction of invasive species, plants, animals, and pathogens transported across oceans and continents, often unintentionally. This biological exchange, sometimes called the Columbian Exchange, transformed ecosystems worldwide. Take, for example, the case of rats and goats introduced to isolated island ecosystems. Islands often host unique species found nowhere else on Earth, evolved in isolation without natural predators or competitors. When explorers brought rats aboard their ships, these rodents escaped and multiplied rapidly, preying on native birds' eggs and competing with indigenous species for food. Similarly, goats released on islands grazed heavily on native vegetation, destroying habitats and causing soil erosion. The impact was catastrophic. Entire bird populations vanished, plants disappeared, and the delicate balance of island ecosystems was shattered. These invasions triggered a wave of extinctions that continue to this day. But it wasn't just animals. Explorers also carried new pathogens, viruses, and bacteria to which indigenous populations had no immunity. Diseases like smallpox, measles, and influenza swept through native communities, causing mortality rates as high as 90% in some cases. This biological onslaught decimated human populations and altered the course of history. The biotic exchange reshaped both natural and human worlds, illustrating how interconnected and fragile life on Earth truly is. Resource exploitation and habitat destruction. Exploration opened the door to intense resource exploitation that accelerated environmental degradation. The pursuit of natural wealth, fur, timber, whale oil, and precious metals, drove unsustainable practices that devastated ecosystems. The early fur trade, for instance, led to the overhunting of beavers and other fur-bearing animals in North America. These species played crucial roles in their habitats, such as creating wetlands that supported diverse life forms. Their decline caused ripple effects throughout ecosystems. Whaling expeditions hunted whales to near extinction, disrupting marine food chains and oceanic nutrient cycles. Timber extraction cleared vast tracts of forest, fragmenting habitats and reducing biodiversity. These activities often accompanied the establishment of permanent settlements, further intensifying habitat loss. Despite their significance, these environmental impacts are frequently overshadowed by the economic and geopolitical narratives of exploration. The destruction of habitats and the fragmentation of ecosystems were often seen as acceptable collateral damage in the quest for progress. Yet, these early examples foreshadowed modern environmental challenges. Deforestation, overexploitation, and habitat fragmentation remain critical threats to biodiversity today. The ripple effect, cascading extinctions. The loss of a single species can have far-reaching consequences, triggering a cascade of extinctions and population declines. This phenomenon is especially pronounced when keystone species, those that play a pivotal role in maintaining ecosystem structure, are affected. For example, the extinction of a predator can lead to overpopulation of prey species, which then overconsume vegetation and degrade habitats. Conversely, the loss of a key pollinator can reduce plant reproduction, affecting food availability for other animals. Historical exploration indirectly caused such cascading effects. The introduction of invasive species, habitat destruction, and overhunting disrupted ecological networks, leading to co-extinctions, where the loss of one species causes the extinction of others dependent on it. One striking example is the decline of the dodo bird on Mauritius, an island ecosystem profoundly altered by human arrival. The dodo's extinction was linked to introduced species like rats and pigs, which preyed on its eggs and competed for resources. This loss affected seed dispersal and forest regeneration, demonstrating how interconnected these systems are. These ripple effects highlight the complexity of ecosystems and the unintended consequences of human actions. Modern echoes and lessons learned. The ecological disruptions caused by historical exploration are not relics of the past. They continue to influence contemporary conservation challenges. Invasive species remain one of the leading causes of biodiversity loss worldwide. Habitat destruction and fragmentation persist as major threats. Modern biosecurity measures aim to prevent the introduction of invasive species, while responsible tourism promotes minimizing human impact on fragile environments. Conservationists study historical cases to understand the mechanisms of ecological change and develop strategies to mitigate damage. Understanding the long-term ecological imbalance created by exploration's disruptions is crucial for safeguarding Earth's future. It reminds us that human actions, even those undertaken with curiosity and ambition, can have profound and lasting effects on the natural world. By learning from history, we can make informed choices today, protecting biodiversity, restoring ecosystems, and respecting the delicate balance of life on our planet. For over a century, the tank has stood as the undisputed symbol of battlefield dominance. A rolling fortress of steel, firepower, and intimidation, it reshaped the very nature of ground combat. From the mud-soaked trenches of World War I to the sweeping armored thrusts of World War II, tanks became the spearhead of military might. But today, a new contender has emerged, small, cheap, and deadly. The drone. Once dismissed as little more than flying cameras, drones have evolved into precision killers, capable of destroying multi-million-dollar armored vehicles with a fraction of the cost and manpower. So, are we witnessing the twilight of the tank? Or is this simply the next chapter in the eternal arms race between weapon and counterweapon? In this video, we'll explore the past, present, and future of this clash. The battlefield of yesteryear, the reign of the tank. The story of the tank begins in the mud and blood of the First World War. Trench warfare had ground armies to a halt. Machine guns, barbed wire, and artillery made advances costly and slow. The solution? An armored vehicle that could crush wire, resist bullets, and carry firepower across no man's land. The British Mark I tank, introduced in 1916, was clumsy, slow, and prone to breakdowns. Yet, it terrified soldiers who had never seen anything like it. The psychological impact was immense. Even when tanks failed mechanically, their presence alone shook enemy morale. By World War II, tanks had matured into the centerpiece of modern armies. The German Blitzkrieg relied on fast-moving panzer divisions, supported by aircraft and mechanized infantry, to smash through enemy lines and encircle entire armies. The Soviet T-34, with its sloped armor and powerful gun, became legendary for its balance of speed, protection, and firepower. Tanks weren't just weapons, they were symbols of national power. Rolling into a city with tanks wasn't just a tactical move, it was a statement of conquest. Armies invested heavily in armored divisions, and doctrines were built around them. During the Cold War, NATO and the Warsaw Pact amassed tens of thousands of tanks, preparing for a showdown in the plains of Europe. The tank was seen as the ultimate land weapon, capable of deciding wars. For decades, the tank reigned supreme. But technology never stands still. The drone revolution, new eyes, new weapons. Fast forward to the 21st century, and a new technology is rewriting the rules of war: drones. At first, drones were little more than reconnaissance tools. They provided eyes in the sky without risking pilots. But soon, militaries realized their potential as weapons. Armed drones could loiter over battlefields, strike with precision, and do so at a fraction of the cost of traditional aircraft. Today, drones come in many forms. Large, high-altitude drones like the American MQ-9 Reaper can conduct surveillance and launch missiles. Smaller quadcopters, costing only hundreds of dollars, can drop grenades or act as suicide drones. Loitering munitions, sometimes called kamikaze drones, hover over battlefields, waiting for a target before diving in for the kill. Recent conflicts have shown just how disruptive drones can be. In the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War, Azerbaijani forces used Turkish Bayraktar TB2 drones to devastating effect. Armenian tanks and artillery were destroyed in large numbers, often caught in the open with little defense. The footage of drones picking off armored vehicles one by one shocked military planners worldwide. In Ukraine, drones have become a daily reality of war. Both sides use commercial drones to drop explosives directly onto tanks, trenches, and supply vehicles. A $500 drone can disable a $5 million tank, a cost ratio that is impossible to ignore. Drones are cheap, expendable, and scalable. A swarm of drones can overwhelm defenses, saturating even the most advanced systems. For militaries used to investing billions in heavy armor, this is a nightmare scenario. The unholy alliance, drone versus tank showdown. So how do tanks fare against drones? The answer is complicated. Tanks are designed to withstand artillery, missiles, and anti-tank weapons. Their armor is thickest on the front, where they expect to face enemy fire. But drones exploit a critical weakness, the top of the tank. The roof armor is much thinner, designed only to resist shrapnel, not direct hits. Drones can attack from above, dropping explosives directly onto hatches, engines, or turrets. Loitering munitions, such as Israel's Harop or Russia's Lancet, dive from the sky with deadly precision. Even small quadcopters can hover and drop grenades into vulnerable spots. Swarm tactics make this even worse. A single tank may be able to defend against 1 or 2 drones, but what about 10? Or 50. The sheer volume of threats can overwhelm even the most advanced defenses. But tanks are not defenseless. Militaries are developing countermeasures. Active protection systems, like Israel's Trophy, can detect and intercept incoming projectiles. Electronic warfare systems can jam drone signals, cutting off communication between operator and drone. Some tanks are being fitted with anti-drone machine guns or even laser defenses. Still, the balance is shifting. For every new defense, drones evolve new tactics. This is the eternal arms race of warfare, weapon versus counterweapon. Beyond the battlefield, strategic implications. The rise of drones is not just a tactical issue, it's strategic. For decades, military doctrine assumed that heavy armor was essential for ground dominance. But now, commanders must ask, is investing billions in tanks wise when cheap drones can destroy them? Some nations are already shifting priorities. Instead of building massive tank fleets, they are investing in drones, electronic warfare, and mobile infantry. The future battlefield may look less like the tank-heavy clashes of the 20th century and more like a networked web of small, fast, and connected units. There are also ethical and regulatory challenges. Autonomous drones raise questions about accountability. If a drone makes a kill decision without human oversight, who is responsible? International law is struggling to keep up with this new reality. Non-state actors, terrorist groups, militias, insurgents can also acquire drones cheaply. Unlike tanks, which require state-level resources, drones can be built in garages or bought online. This democratization of air power is deeply unsettling for traditional militaries. Artificial intelligence adds another layer. AI-driven targeting systems could make drones faster, deadlier, and more independent. A future battlefield of autonomous swarms, coordinating without human input, is no longer science fiction. It's a looming possibility. The new era of warfare, adaptation, or obsolescence. So, are tanks obsolete? The answer is more nuanced than a simple yes or no. Tanks are not disappearing tomorrow. They still provide mobile firepower, protection for infantry, and psychological impact. In urban combat, tanks remain valuable for supporting ground troops. But their role is changing. Tanks can no longer operate alone. They must be integrated into a broader system, working with drones, infantry, electronic warfare, and air support. The days of massive tank versus tank battles may be fading, replaced by hybrid warfare where drones scout, disrupt, and strike, while tanks deliver decisive blows. Militaries are adapting. New tank designs are incorporating active protection, drone integration, and even their own onboard drones. The tank of the future may look very different from the steel behemoths of the past. In truth, the story of drones versus tanks is not about one replacing the other. It's about evolution. Warfare is a constant cycle of innovation and adaptation. The machine gun made cavalry obsolete. The tank overcame trenches. The missile challenged the tank. And now, drones are the latest challenger. But history shows us one thing. No weapon is ever truly invincible, and no weapon is ever truly obsolete. They simply evolve, adapt, and find new roles. Conclusion: the tank may no longer be king of the battlefield, but it is not yet dethroned. Instead, it is entering a new era, one where survival depends on adaptation, integration, and innovation. Drones have changed the game, but they are not the final word. The arms race continues, and the future of warfare will be shaped by the next leap in technology, whether it's autonomous swarms, directed energy weapons, or something we can't yet imagine. One thing is certain: the battlefield of tomorrow will look very different from the battlefield of yesterday, and the clash between drones and tanks is only the beginning.
In the heart of Alabama, starting in 1932, the United States government launched a medical study that would betray the very people it claimed to serve. This was not just a study, it was a deliberate act of cruelty rooted in racism. This is the story of the Tuskegee syphilis study. For 40 years, nearly 400 African American men, many poor and uneducated, were told they were receiving free health care. But in truth, they were left untreated. Even as syphilis ravaged their bodies, the government watched, knowing full well the deadly disease would progress. These men were denied treatment, denied dignity, and denied humanity, all because of the color of their skin. The study continued long after penicillin became the standard cure in the 1940s. Yet, the government chose to let them suffer and die. Wives were infected. Children were born with congenital syphilis. Entire families were shattered. The pain was not just physical, it was a profound betrayal of trust. This was not a mistake. It was a calculated decision fueled by racist beliefs that black lives were expendable in the name of science. The Tuskegee study exposed the deep wounds of systemic racism in America's institutions. It wasn't until 1972, after a whistleblower exposed the study, that it finally ended. The government apologized, but the scars remain in the survivors, their families, and the collective conscience of a nation. Today, we remember the men of Tuskegee not as subjects, but as victims of injustice. Their story demands that we never forget the cost of racism disguised as research. Officials saw the men in Tuskegee not as individuals, but as subjects, mere data points to study the natural progression of syphilis. They prioritized scientific curiosity over human life, convinced that the knowledge gained would benefit society, even if it meant sacrificing black bodies. This was not just neglect. It was a deliberate decision rooted in systemic racism, a government action that dehumanized an entire community under the guise of medical research. Their lives were stolen in the name of science, but their story must ignite a relentless fight for justice, equality, and the dignity every human deserves.
The story of how the United States destroyed Japan in World War II is one of the most intense and transformative chapters in modern history. It's a tale marked by surprise attacks, fierce battles, strategic brilliance, and profound consequences that reshaped the world. From the shocking attack on Pearl Harbor to the devastating atomic bombings, the conflict between these two powers unfolded across vast oceans and islands, changing the course of history forever. The conflict began dramatically on the morning of December 7, 1941, when Japanese forces launched a surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Pearl Harbor, Hawaii. Without warning, waves of Japanese aircraft descended on the harbor, destroying battleships, aircraft, and killing thousands of American servicemen. This attack was intended to cripple the U.S. Pacific Fleet and give Japan free rein to expand its empire across Asia and the Pacific. However, rather than breaking American morale, the attack galvanized the United States into full-scale war. The next day, the U.S. officially declared war on Japan, marking its entry into World War II. Following Pearl Harbor, Japan rapidly expanded its control over Southeast Asia and numerous Pacific islands. They captured the Philippines, Malaya, Singapore, and the Dutch East Indies, securing vital resources like oil and rubber essential for their war effort. Japan's military seemed unstoppable, and the Allies were forced onto the defensive. However, the United States, with its vast industrial capacity and growing military strength, began planning a counteroffensive that would turn the tide of the war. The pivotal moment came in June 1942 during the Battle of Midway, a fierce naval engagement that proved to be the turning point in the Pacific theater. Using intelligence breakthroughs, American forces anticipated the Japanese attack and set a trap. In just a few days, the U.S. Navy sank 4 of Japan's most important aircraft carriers, crippling their offensive capability. This victory halted Japan's expansion and shifted momentum firmly in favor of the Allies. With the strategic advantage, the U.S. adopted a bold island-hopping campaign. Instead of attacking every Japanese-held island, American forces targeted key islands to establish airfields and naval bases, cutting off Japanese supply lines and isolating enemy forces. This approach minimized casualties and maximized efficiency. Battles on islands such as Guadalcanal, Tarawa, Saipan, Iwo Jima, and Okinawa were brutal and costly, with fierce Japanese resistance. but each victory brought the U.S. closer to Japan's home islands. At the same time, the United States industrial might played a crucial role. American factories produced ships, planes, tanks, and weapons at an unprecedented scale, outpacing Japan's limited resources and manufacturing capabilities. The U.S. Navy dominated the Pacific Seas, while the Army Air Forces launched relentless bombing raids on Japanese cities and industrial centers, severely weakening Japan's capacity to continue the war. The final and most devastating blow came in August 1945, when the United States dropped atomic bombs on the cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These bombs unleashed unimaginable destruction, instantly killing tens of thousands and causing long-term suffering from radiation. The bombings shocked Japan's leadership and people, forcing them to confront the hopelessness of continuing the conflict. On August 15, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's surrender, bringing World War II to an end. The aftermath of Japan's defeat was profound. The U.S. occupied Japan and helped rebuild it into a peaceful, democratic nation. The war left deep scars, but also paved the way for Japan's remarkable post-war recovery and transformation into a global economic power. The conflict also reshaped international relations and set the stage for the Cold War era. Understanding how the United States destroyed Japan in World War II reveals the complex interplay of military strategy, industrial power, and human endurance. It is a story of tragedy and triumph, of innovation and sacrifice, and a powerful reminder of the costs of war and the resilience of nations. Thank you for watching this video. I enjoyed making these visuals because it reminds me of old-school video games like Battlefield Heroes. Leave a like and comment if you like this style. See you in the next video. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to an epic journey through time, the evolution of warfare. From the primal clashes of our prehistoric ancestors to the high-tech battles of today, warfare has shaped human history, societies, and technologies. It's a story of innovation born from necessity, strategy forged in the fires of conflict, and the relentless pursuit of dominance. As we explore this timeline, we'll see how simple tools gave way to devastating weapons, how tactics adapted to terrains and technologies, and how wars have grown from local skirmishes to global cataclysms. Buckle up, this is the story of humanity's most destructive art form. Warfare didn't begin with grand armies or sophisticated plans. Its roots lie deep in our evolutionary past, where survival meant defending resources against rivals. But as civilizations rose, so did the scale and complexity of conflict. Let's start at the beginning. Prehistoric warfare, the dawn of human conflict, 500,000 BC, 3000 BC. Imagine a world without nations, without borders, just bands of hunter-gatherers roaming vast landscapes. Yet, even here, warfare emerged. Anthropologists debate its origins, but evidence points to organized violence as early as 500,000 years ago. Fossil records show injuries from clubs and spears, suggesting raids for food, territory, or mates. In prehistoric times, fighting was brutal and personal, using rudimentary weapons like stones, wooden clubs, and early spears dating back to 35,000 BC. Arrows, maces, and slings appeared around 12,000 BC, allowing for ranged attacks that changed the dynamics of ambushes. Lawrence H. Healy's research reveals that 87% of tribal societies engaged in war more than once a year, with some in constant conflict. Casualty rates could reach 60% in close-quarters battles, far higher than modern wars. The shift to agriculture around 10,000 BC intensified this. Settled villages became targets during famines, leading to the first professional warriors in advanced farming societies. Archaeological sites like Cemetery 117 in Egypt, dating back 7,000 years, show bodies riddled with arrowheads, clear signs of mass battles. These early conflicts were driven by resource scarcity, population pressures, and ecological changes, such as droughts or the extinction of large game. Warfare wasn't just about killing. It was about prestige, slaves, and land. In regions like Anatolia by 5,500 BC, Central Europe by 4,300 BC, and northern China by 2,500 BC, wars became more systematic. Early humans, possibly even displacing Neanderthals through small-scale raids, learned that collective action and surprise were key to victory. This era laid the groundwork, warfare as a tool for survival and expansion. As societies grew more complex, so did their methods. By the end of prehistory, chariots emerged as shock weapons, hinting at the organized armies to come. Ancient warfare, empires and innovations, 3000 BC, 500 AD. With the rise of civilizations, warfare transformed into a structured endeavor. In Mesopotamia and Egypt, city-states clashed using chariots, spears, and early formations. The Sumerians, Akkadians, Babylonians, Assyrians, and Persians built empires through conquest, introducing cavalry and siege tactics. The Egyptians under pharaohs like Ramses II waged wars for glory and resources, their chariots thundering across battlefields. In India, the Battle of the Ten Kings and epics like the Mahabharata described massive formations and even esoteric weapons. Alexander the Great's invasion in 326 BC, defeating King Porus at the Hydaspes River, showcased Macedonian phalanxes, tightly packed infantry with long spears, against war elephants. Chandragupta Maurya later unified northern India, repelling Macedonian remnants. China's Warring States period, 475 to 221 BC, was a hotbed of innovation. Philosophers like Sun Tzu in The Art of War emphasized deception, terrain, and intelligence, while Mozi developed siege engines. Qin Shi Huang's unification in 221 BC relied on crossbows and disciplined armies. Greece brought the phalanx to prominence. Hoplites, armed with shields and spears, formed an impenetrable wall, as seen in Sparta's stand at Thermopylae against Persia in 480 BC. Athens' naval victory at Salamis highlighted sea power. Rome, however, perfected flexibility. Their legions, organized into maniples, adapted to any terrain. The Punic Wars, 264 to 146 BC, against Carthage featured Hannibal's daring alpine crossing with elephants and Roman naval innovations like the Corvus boarding device. Julius Caesar's campaigns, including crossing the Rubicon, demonstrated psychological tactics and rapid maneuvers. This era saw infantry dominate, with heavy formations countering chariots. Battles were decided by discipline, positioning, and logistics. Fortifications rose, and biological warfare appeared. Poisoned wells and diseased bodies hurled over walls. By 500 AD, the fall of Rome marked a shift, but ancient lessons and strategy endured. Medieval warfare, knights, castles, and conquest, 500 AD, 1500 AD. The medieval period, often romanticized as the age of chivalry, was a time of feudalism and fragmented power. The introduction of stirrups revolutionized cavalry, allowing knights in heavy armor to charge with lances. Europe saw castles that the landscape, serving as defensive strongholds for lords. The Islamic Arab Empire expanded rapidly under leaders like Khalid ibn al-Walid, conquering the Middle East, North Africa, and parts of Europe. Their advance was halted at the Battle of Tours in 732 AD by Charles Martel. In China, the Tang and Song dynasties innovated with gunpowder and Greek fire-like incendiaries, but fell to Mongol invasions. Genghis Khan's hordes, starting in 1206, used mobility, archery from horseback, and psychological terror to build the largest contiguous empire, defeating the Song by 1279. In Europe, the Battle of Hastings in 1066 showcased Norman tactics. William the Conqueror used feigned retreats to lure English forces into disarray. The Crusades, 1095 to 1291, pitted Christian knights against Muslim armies, with sieges and long supply lines testing endurance. Infantry tactics evolved to counter cavalry, as seen in English longbowmen at Agincourt in 1415, where arrows decimated French knights. Driving forces included technology, like crossbows, culture, and economics. Feudal lords raised armies from vassals, while mercenaries filled gaps. Wars were frequent but limited, focused on sieges rather than open battles. The Black Death in the 14th century disrupted armies, highlighting how disease could be as deadly as swords. As the Middle Ages waned, a new invention would shatter the old order. Gunpowder and early modern warfare, 1500 AD, 1800 AD. Gunpowder, invented in China's Song dynasty around 900 AD, spread to the Ottomans, Safavids, Mughals, and Europeans by the 15th century. It ended knightly dominance. Cannons pierced armor, muskets allowed massed fire. The Italian Wars, 1494 to 1559, saw Europeans adopt these, leading to professional standing armies, field artillery, and bayonets. Fortifications evolved into star-shaped bastions to deflect cannonballs. The 30 Years' War, 1618 to 1648, was a bloodbath with musketeers and pike formations. Tactics emphasized logistics and discipline. Battles like Breitenfeld showed combined arms. The Peace of Westphalia in 1648 ushered in cabinet screech, limited wars by monarchs using mercenaries. Colonial expansion amplified conflicts. Europeans clashed with indigenous peoples, sparking resistance and slave raids. In the Americas, displaced tribes fought over new weapons and lands. Biological warfare persisted, with smallpox blankets used against Native Americans. Naval warfare advanced with ships of the line, as in the Spanish Armada's defeat in 1588. This era bridged medieval melee to modern firepower. Industrial and Napoleonic warfare, 1800 AD, 1914 AD. The Industrial Revolution mechanized war. Napoleon Bonaparte's conscript armies during the Napoleonic Wars, 1799 to 1815, introduced mass mobilization, with over 1 million Frenchmen under arms. Tactics like the column attack and artillery barges won at Austerlitz, but failed in Russia due to logistics. Conscription spread, as in Prussia's victory at Zadova in 1866. Total war emerged in the American Civil War, 1861 to 1865, with Sherman's march to the sea destroying resources to break enemy will. Railroads and telegraphs enabled rapid movement and communication. Technologies like rifled guns, ironclads, e.g., Monitor versus Merrimack, and machine guns increased lethality. Colonial wars, like the Opium Wars in China, showcased European superiority through steamships and repeating rifles. By 1914, nations were primed for catastrophe. World Wars, total devastation, 1914 to 1945. World War I, 1914 to 1918. Triggered by Archduke Franz Ferdinand's assassination, it devolved into trench warfare on the Western Front. Machine guns, artillery, and poison gas like chlorine caused millions of deaths. Tanks and airplanes debuted, breaking stalemates at battles like the Somme. The U.S. entry in 1917 shifted momentum. The war ended with the Treaty of Versailles, but sowed seeds for more conflict. World War II, 1939 to 1945, was even deadlier. Germany's blitzkrieg, fast, coordinated attacks with tanks, infantry, and air support, conquered Poland and France. The Dunkirk evacuation saved Allied forces, while the Battle of Britain showcased air power. Japan's Pearl Harbor attack in 1941 drew the U.S. in. Allied invasions like D-Day in 1944 and island hopping in the Pacific turned the tide. The Holocaust and atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki highlighted war's horrors. Nuclear weapons changed everything, introducing mutually assured destruction. Over 70 million died, reshaping the world. Cold War and modern warfare, 1945 AD, present. The Cold War, 1947 to 1991, was a tense standoff between the US and USSR. Proxy wars in Korea, 1950 to 1953, and Vietnam, 1955 to 1975, featured guerrilla tactics against conventional forces. The Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962 nearly went nuclear. Technologies exploded: satellites, ICBMs, nuclear submarines. Treaties like the 1925 Geneva Protocol and 1972 Biological Weapons Convention aimed to limit horrors, but violations persisted. Post-Cold War, conflicts turned asymmetric. Guerrillas and terrorists used IEDs and suicide bombings, as in Afghanistan and Iraq. Cyber warfare emerged, hacking infrastructure without boots on the ground. Drones and precision strikes define modern ops, minimizing casualties but raising ethical questions. In 2025, AI, hypersonic missiles, and space weapons loom. Warfare is hybrid, conventional, cyber, and info ops. Leaders like David Petraeus note the shift to high-tech, low-manpower strategies. The future of warfare, horizons unknown, beyond 2025. Looking ahead, warfare may involve autonomous drones, bioengineered weapons, and AI commanders. Climate change could spark resource wars, while space becomes a battlefield. Strategies will blend human ingenuity with machine precision, but the core remains: adapt or perish. Conclusion: lessons from the battlefield. From clubs to nukes, warfare's evolution reflects humanity's progress and peril. It's driven innovation in medicine, transport, and tech, but at immense cost. As we stand in 2025, remember, understanding history might help us forge peace. Thank you for joining this exploration. What battles shape our future? Only time will tell.
Here is World War II history, but in memes. Don't show this to your history teachers. They will get mad. Let's begin. Did you know that Italy was extremely unsuccessful in World War II? Denmark surrendered after just 6 hours of fighting. The Germans forgot to pack winter clothes for the Russian winter. The Poles got attacked from all sides.
Captain Geary! I'm not finished yet, sir. We can do this, General! Let's make the end memorable!
The Soviets were losing against the Axis until Stalingrad.
You want to play games? Okay. Come on. Okay. You want to play rough? Okay. Say hello to my little friend!
The Brits showed that the Nazis could be beat. Thank you for watching.